The old Winchester rifle, possibly American-made, was strategically placed in a tree overlooking the estate's swimming pool by Jack Wilson. He wore rubber gloves and used a small monocle, positioning himself about 70 yards away from the pool, where several lounge chairs were set up. This pool belonged to Sam Anderson, a wealthy entrepreneur. Although the tree was outside the estate, it was still close enough for a clear view. Sam employed Jack's wife, Lisa, a stunning woman with dark brown hair. Lisa had been spending weekends at Sam's estate for the past month, blatantly telling Jack about her intention to start a physical relationship with her boss, while Sam's wife, Emma, was away on charity work. Jack wasn't sure if Emma knew about Lisa's visits, but the estate staff probably did. As Sam and Lisa strolled towards the pool, Sam in swim trunks and Lisa in a revealing top, Jack's stomach churned. This scene had become all too familiar over the last few weeks as Jack monitored the estate closely. Now it was time for him to determine the fate of these two lovers. Sam's striking looks and athletic build made him an appealing match for Lisa, and Jack could somewhat see why Lisa was drawn to him. However, understanding did not equate to acceptance. Ever since Lisa announced her intentions, Jack was resolutely against it. Jack and Lisa, both 37 years old, had been married for 16 years and had twin daughters, Claire and Sarah, who were 15 and the spitting image of their mother. The girls were currently staying at Jack's parents' house before heading off to a football camp. Jack was supposedly on a biking trip with his best friend Tom Smith, who was his business partner and a buddy since first grade. Their company had flourished, making both men wealthy. Tom was married to Emily, his childhood sweetheart. Emily had also been a childhood crush of Jack's, but Tom ended up winning her heart. Jack never really understood why, as he and Tom looked quite similar. Nonetheless, Jack accepted it and found Lisa in college, who became everything he ever needed. Tom waited some distance away on the bike path while Lisa was about to get a shocking surprise. Jack watched as Lisa and Sam embraced, their hug morphing into a kiss. As soon as they parted, Sam's chest suddenly erupted in a burst of blood. His body recoiled away from Lisa, who screamed and fell to the ground. Blood was everywhere as she crawled to the pool and plunged in. Jack had seen enough. He climbed down from the tree, sprinted up the hill, and tossed the rifle into the bushes. He removed the stock cover and gloves, stuffed them into a plastic bag on his belt, and jogged to his bike. He pedaled to the main bike path and, after ensuring no one was around, biked about 3 miles to meet up with Tom. They continued their ride, and about 6 miles later, Jack disposed of the plastic bag in a dumpster. They finished their ride and arrived at Tom's house. Jack wasn't worried about the rifle. He figured the police would eventually find it, but they wouldn't get any DNA. He had owned the rifle for many years, having acquired it from a dying acquaintance. There were 2 rifles and 2 pistols. The other rifle was a World War II relic. Apart from the rifle used that day, the other weapons were kept in Jack's safe. This particular rifle had never been stored in the safe. Jack had kept it hidden in a garage closet. When Lisa had revealed her plans to have an affair with Sam, Jack immediately thought of this rifle. Over the following week, he took her to his country property to ensure she could shoot accurately. After making some adjustments, the rifle was ready. When they reached Tom's house, Emily welcomed them with cold beers, asking, "How was the ride, guys?" Tom replied, "It was great. The trail was not crowded and we had a solid workout, about 4 hours." Emily, a lovely woman with dark hair, gave them both hugs. Jack found her attractive despite her being Tom's wife. After a few beers and a shower, they sat by the pool. Emily turned to Jack and asked, "How long do you think Lisa's affair will last?" She was aware of Lisa's weekend escapades because Jack had confided in them. While Emily thought he should kick Lisa out immediately, Tom advised waiting to protect their business and the children. Jack had already made up his mind. He despised men who slept with other men's wives, especially his own. Jack responded to Emily, "I have no clue, but I hope to continue my relationship with Nora." Emily repeated, "I still believe it is time for you to leave Lisa." Emily and Lisa had never been close, although their families communicated. Emily's sons, John and Ben, were close in age to Jack's twins. Despite social gatherings going smoothly, Lisa and Emily moved in different circles. Lisa had her country club friends, while Emily was involved in the Democratic Party and book clubs. Lisa's job changed when she was hired by Sam 2 years ago, while Emily remained at her old company. As Jack sat there, he pondered recent events and Lisa's betrayal. For 20 months, he had been completely in the dark. There was a significant problem in our marriage. Despite our problems, our intimate life did not change, and Lisa still attended our daughter's soccer matches. Late one night, she decided to tell me the following. "Jack, I need to tell you something. I hope it won't ruin us because I love you," she said, looking nervous. I remained calm, although my mind was racing. "I've developed feelings for Sam. His wife is away for the weekend and I plan to visit him starting this Friday. I don't know how long it will last." I remained outwardly calm, knowing deep down that I couldn't stop her, and I didn't want to try. Sam was almost dead, and so was our marriage. I had not yet decided what to do with Lisa. I still loved her, but her flaws had become unbearable. Remembering the rifle hidden in the garage, I tried to keep my thoughts under control. Lisa seemed startled when I smiled a moment later. It was a sincere smile that worried her, and it was caused by thoughts of the rifle. "Do you think this is funny?" she asked angrily. "Not at all," I replied, still smiling, which sent shivers down her spine. Standing up, I asked, "Have you been intimate with him yet?" Lisa hesitated. "No, just a few kisses." "I'm going to sleep in the guest house tonight. Let me know when you're done with your affair and we'll see what's left." I went upstairs to get ready for the night. Lisa, sitting in the living room, felt dissatisfied with the situation but was determined to see her plans through. It was Wednesday, and she was looking forward to spending the weekend with Sam, who was younger, rich, educated, and fit. She realized her attraction to him when she saw him shirtless in the office gym. Lisa expected their affair to last a few months and then perhaps develop into something more permanent. She loved me and appreciated our life, but she felt restless and strongly attracted to Sam. She was confident that things would work out with time. That Wednesday night I couldn't sleep. My thoughts were not fitting in my head. The twins stayed at a friend's house for the weekend, which gave me time to think and check my weapons. On Thursday, I went to lunch at my usual cafe, where I sometimes met Nora Hansen, a young woman with an athletic build and dark hair. Nora reminded me of Emily in both appearance and personality. We had been flirting for a few weeks, but I had no plans to pursue her until Lisa made her stunning announcement. That Thursday, I sat next to Nora in the cubicle, not across from her. Nora, who was used to the attention of men, noticed this change and was happy. She had been saving a seat for me for 2 weeks, hoping I would take the hint. Nora knew I was married, but she thought I was charming. She turned to me and smiled playfully. "Something has changed, hasn't it?" she asked. I smiled. "Yes, my wife decided to play with her boss." Nora put her hand on my hip. "And I was wondering if you would like to have dinner and dance on Friday night." "Oh, Nora, I'd love to," I replied quietly. I felt like a fool, but I smiled anyway. She patted my cheek. I was excited and trying to control myself. She stroked my cheek and I kissed her lightly on the lips. "I'd better not stay here, we might get into trouble." We exchanged phone numbers. When I returned to work, I felt like a teenager. Some of my colleagues noticed my change. Emily noticed too when I walked home cheerful. "I made lasagna and salad," she said, offering it as a gesture of peace. She expected me to be upset about her betrayal, so my reaction surprised her. "Thank you, I am starving." My mood clearly improved. Lisa was suspicious, wondering if I had already moved on. After I washed my face, we sat down at the table. Lisa made a decision. "Tomorrow I will go to his house." I looked at her. "It's not too late to refuse, Lisa. I think you'll regret it." She hesitated. This was a new side of me. For a moment she felt love for me, but she fought it. "I need this, Jack." I smiled. "I don't think we use the word need the same way, Lisa." She cleared the plates. "I hope you see your path clearly. Are you going to sleep with me tonight?" "No, you will see me when you finish your novel. Then everything will be clear." Lisa felt disappointed. She had imagined a pleasant night of intimacy to close this chapter of our marriage peacefully, but it didn't happen. She realized that she was done. I pulled up in front of the guest house. "Maybe something will change, Lisa, but probably not." I walked out the door. Lisa sat at the table, realizing she was risking our marriage. She had hoped things might return to normal after the affair ended, but now knew that was naive. Continuing with Sam would change her life unpredictably. She almost decided to end it, but doubted I would ever see her the same. She decided to proceed. Friday evening, Lisa packed her bag. Jack watched from the window of the guest house as Lisa loaded her bag into the car. A mixture of anger, betrayal, and a strange calmness that seemed almost surreal was running through his mind. The rifle was ready, the plan was in place, but a small part of him still hesitated, clinging to the hope that Lisa would change her mind. Lisa had left, and Jack knew there was no turning back. He headed for the garage, checked his rifle again, and headed for the tree that overlooked Sam's pool. The familiar rumbling in his stomach returned as he climbed the tree and took up his position. He saw Lisa arrive, whom Sam greeted with a warm hug and a kiss. Jack gripped his rifle tighter, his knuckles turning white. Lisa and Sam headed for the pool, unaware of the impending danger. When they settled down on the sun loungers, Jack took a deep breath, took aim, and waited for the perfect moment. His mind flashed back to the first days of their marriage, the love and happiness they had once shared. He pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on the betrayal in front of him. Just as Sam leaned in to kiss Lisa again, Jack pulled the trigger. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the mansion, and Sam's chest exploded with blood. He pulled away from Lisa, who screamed and fell to the ground. Blood sprayed in all directions as she crawled to the pool and dove in, trying to wash away the horror. Jack climbed down from the tree, his heart pounding. He ran up the hill, threw the rifle into the bushes, removed the case and gloves, stuffing them into a plastic bag around his waist. He jogged to his bicycle and rode to the main bike path, making sure no one could see him. He cycled about 3 miles to meet up with Tom, who was waiting for him. Tom looked concerned as Jack approached. "Are you okay?" Jack forced a smile. "Yeah, I just needed to clear my head." They continued driving, and after about 6 miles, Jack threw the plastic bag into a trash can. They finished the ride and arrived at Tom's house, where Emily greeted them with a cold beer. "How was the ride, guys?" she asked. "It was great. There weren't many people on the track, and we had a good workout, about 4 hours," Tom replied. Emily, a lovely woman with dark hair, hugged them both. Jack found her attractive, even though she was Tom's wife. After a few beers and showers, they sat by the pool. Emily turned to Jack and asked, "How long do you think Lisa's affair will last?" Jack's jaw dropped. "It's over." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Over? What happened?" Jack took a deep breath. "Let's just say Sam won't be bothering us anymore." Emily looked shocked, but before she could respond, Tom interjected. "Let's not talk about this right now. Let's just enjoy the evening." Jack nodded, grateful for Tom's intervention. For the rest of the evening, they talked about anything but Lisa and Sam. Jack was thinking about something else, replaying the events of that day in his mind. He knew that the police would eventually find the rifle, but without DNA, they wouldn't be able to trace it back to him. Later that night, as Jack lay in bed, he couldn't shake the image of Lisa's face as Sam was shot. The betrayal, the anger, and the strange sense of relief all mingled together, leaving him feeling more conflicted than ever. He knew his life would never be the same, but for now, all he could do was wait and see what the future held. Jack lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. The adrenaline from earlier had worn off, leaving a void that was quickly filled with doubt and guilt. He knew he had crossed a line, one that he couldn't come back from, but part of him was also resolute in the belief that he had no other choice. The next morning, Jack was up early. He went through the motions of his routine, trying to keep his mind occupied. He drove to his office, hoping to find some solace in the familiarity of work. As he walked into the building, he noticed Nora at her desk, her eyes lighting up when she saw him. "Jack, how was your weekend?" she asked, her voice warm and inviting. Jack forced a smile. "It was eventful. How about yours?" Nora leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I was hoping we could talk about Friday night, maybe have lunch together?" Jack nodded, grateful for the distraction. "I'd like that. Let's meet at the cafe around noon." The morning passed slowly. Jack found it difficult to concentrate, his thoughts constantly drifting back to Lisa and Sam. He wondered how long it would take for the news to break and what the consequences would be. Just before noon, his phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "We need to talk. Can you come over tonight?" Jack's heart sank. He replied, "Sure, see you then." At lunch, Jack met Nora at the cafe. She was already seated, a cup of coffee in front of her. He sat down and she immediately sensed his tension. "Jack, what's wrong? You seem off today." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's been a rough weekend, Nora. Things are complicated at home." Nora reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. "I'm here if you need to talk." Jack looked into her eyes, feeling a strange mix of comfort and guilt. "Thanks, Nora. I appreciate it. Let's just enjoy lunch for now." They talked about mundane things, trying to keep the conversation light. Jack found himself laughing at her stories, grateful for the brief reprieve from his troubled thoughts. After lunch, they parted ways, and Jack returned to the office feeling slightly better. That evening, Jack drove to Tom and Emily's house. The air was thick with tension as he walked up to the front door. Emily opened it, her face serious. She led him to the living room where Tom was waiting. "Jack, we need to know what happened," Tom said, his voice firm. Jack took a deep breath. "Sam is dead. I shot him." Emily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Tom's eyes widened in shock. "Why, Jack? Why did you do it?" Tom asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Jack's hands trembled as he recounted the events of the past few days. He told them about Lisa's betrayal, his anger, and the moment he decided to take matters into his own hands. Emily listened, her eyes filled with a mix of horror and sympathy. "Jack, you can't just take the law into your own hands," Tom said, his voice softer now. "What are you going to do if the police come knocking?" Jack shook his head. "I don't know, I couldn't let it go on. I couldn't let him take Lisa away from me." Emily put a hand on his shoulder. "We need to figure out a plan. If the police come, you need to be ready." Jack nodded, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. For the first time since the shooting, he felt a glimmer of hope. He wasn't alone in this. Tom and Emily were with him, and together they would figure out a way to get through it. As the night went on, they discussed various scenarios and possible ways to handle the situation. Jack knew it wouldn't be easy, but with his friends by his side, he felt a renewed sense of determination. He would face whatever came next, and he would do it with the support of those he trusted most. The following days were a blur for Jack. He continued with his routine, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but his thoughts were constantly overshadowed by the events of the weekend. The news of Sam's death had yet to break, and each passing hour felt like a ticking time bomb. Lisa, on the other hand, was a ghost. She moved around the house silently, avoiding Jack's gaze. The weight of their unspoken words hung heavy in the air. Jack knew she was grappling with her own guilt and confusion, but he had no sympathy left for her. The betrayal was too fresh, the wound too deep. On Wednesday evening, as Jack sat in the living room nursing a drink, Lisa finally broke the silence. "Jack, we need to talk." Jack looked up, his eyes cold. "What is there to talk about, Lisa? You made your choice." She winced at his harsh tone. "I know, and I was wrong. I see that now. But Sam is dead, Jack. What are we going to do?" Jack's grip tightened around his glass. "We? There's no we in this, Lisa. I didn't choose this path. You did." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I never wanted it to end like this. I was confused, Jack. I made a mistake." Jack scoffed. "A mistake? You think this is just a mistake, Lisa? This is a disaster." Lisa sank into a chair, her shoulders shaking with sobs. "I'm sorry. I don't know how to fix this." Jack's anger flared. "Fix this? You can't fix this. It's done. All we can do now is survive it." He got up and walked out of the room, leaving Lisa to her tears. He couldn't bear to see her like this, not after everything she had done. He needed space, time to think. The weight of what he had done was pressing down on him, and he needed to find a way to carry it. The next day, Jack decided to go to the cafe where he had met Nora. He needed a distraction, something to pull him out of the darkness. As he walked in, he saw her sitting at their usual table, a smile lighting up her face when she saw him. "Jack, over here!" she called out, waving him over. He made his way to the table, trying to muster a smile. "Hey, Nora." She tilted her head, studying him. "You look tired. Everything okay?" Jack sighed, sinking into the chair. "Just a lot on my mind." Nora reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. "I'm here if you need to talk." Jack hesitated, then decided to confide in her, at least partially. "It's Lisa. Things are complicated." Nora squeezed his hand. "I'm sorry, Jack. Relationships can be tough, but I'm here for you." Her kindness was a balm to his wounded soul. He found himself opening up to her, sharing his frustrations and fears. Nora listened patiently, offering support and understanding. By the time they finished their coffee, Jack felt a bit lighter. As they walked out of the cafe, Nora turned to him. "How about we go for a walk? Clear your head a bit more." Jack nodded, grateful for the suggestion. They strolled through the park, the cool breeze refreshing. Nora's presence was a comfort, and he found himself drawn to her more and more. "Thanks for this, Nora," he said softly. "I really needed it." She smiled up at him. "Any time, Jack. You're a good man. You deserve to be happy." Her words struck a chord deep within him. He had been so consumed by anger and betrayal that he had forgotten what it felt like to be cared for. As they walked, he realized that he wanted more of this feeling, more of Nora. That evening, as Jack sat in the guest house, he made a decision. He couldn't keep living in limbo, waiting for the other shoe to drop. He needed to take control of his life again. He pulled out his phone and called Tom. "Tom, I need your help," he said when his friend answered. "What's going on, Jack?" Tom's voice was filled with concern. "I can't keep living like this. I need to find a way to move forward. Can we meet tomorrow?" "Of course, come over after work." The next day, Jack drove to Tom's house. Emily was there too, waiting with a worried expression. They sat down in the living room and Jack laid out his plan. "I need to come clean to the police," he said, his voice steady. Emily gasped. "Jack, no, they'll arrest you." Tom frowned. "Are you sure about this? There might be another way." Jack shook his head. "I've thought about it a lot. I can't keep living with this secret. It's eating me alive." Emily reached out, her eyes pleading. "Jack, please, there has to be another way." Jack looked at his friends, feeling a surge of gratitude. "I appreciate your concern, but I need to do this. I need to take responsibility." Tom sighed, nodding reluctantly. "If that's what you want, we'll support you, but let's make sure we have a plan." They spent the next few hours discussing the best course of action. Jack felt a sense of resolve settling over him. It was time to face the consequences of his actions, no matter how daunting they seemed. As he drove home that night, Jack felt a strange mix of fear and relief. He was stepping into the unknown, but he was doing it with his head held high. He would face whatever came next with courage and determination. The next morning, Jack walked into the police station ready to confess. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was prepared to face the fallout. As he sat down with the detective, he felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He was finally taking control of his life again. Jack sat in the small, sterile interrogation room of the police station, his hands resting on the cool metal table. The room's harsh fluorescent lights flickered slightly, casting an eerie glow over everything. Across from him sat Detective Harris, a seasoned officer with a stern expression and penetrating gaze. "You wanted to talk, Mr. Wilson," Harris began, leaning forward. "Why don't you start from the beginning?" Jack took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. "It all started when my wife Lisa told me she had developed feelings for her boss, Sam Anderson. She was planning to start an affair with him, and she didn't try to hide it from me." Harris nodded, taking notes. "Go on." Jack recounted the events leading up to that fateful day: the rifle, the tree, the pool. As he spoke, he could feel the weight of his actions bearing down on him. But he pushed through, determined to lay everything out. "And then I pulled the trigger," Jack said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "I killed Sam." Harris leaned back in his chair, studying Jack carefully. "That's a heavy confession, Mr. Wilson. Why come forward now?" Jack looked down at his hands, struggling to find the words. "I couldn't live with the guilt. I thought I was protecting my family, but all I did was destroy everything I cared about. I needed to take responsibility." The room fell silent, the gravity of Jack's confession hanging in the air. Harris nodded slowly, closing his notebook. "We'll need to corroborate your story, Mr. Wilson. For now, you're under arrest for the murder of Sam Anderson." As Jack was led away in handcuffs, he felt a strange sense of relief. The truth was out, and he was ready to face whatever came next. Back at home, Lisa sat at the kitchen table, her mind racing. She had overheard Jack's conversation with Tom and Emily the previous night and knew what he was planning. The shock of Sam's death had been overwhelming, but the realization that Jack had killed him was almost too much to bear. She couldn't believe how far things had spiraled out of control. Her affair with Sam had been a desperate attempt to escape the monotony of her life, a reckless bid for excitement and validation. But now it had cost Sam his life and shattered her family. As the doorbell rang, Lisa jumped, her heart pounding. She opened the door to find Nora standing there, her expression filled with concern. "Lisa, I heard what happened," Nora said softly. "Can I come in?" Lisa nodded, stepping aside to let her in. They sat down at the table and Lisa struggled to hold back tears. "I don't know what to do, Nora," Lisa admitted. "Jack confessed to the police. He's going to prison and it's all my fault." Nora reached out, taking Lisa's hand. "It's not just your fault, Lisa. Jack made his own choices. But you need to be strong now for your daughters." The mention of Claire and Sarah brought fresh tears to Lisa's eyes. "I don't know how to explain this to them. They're already so confused and hurt." Nora squeezed her hand. "You don't have to do it alone. I'll help you. We'll get through this together." As Lisa leaned into Nora's embrace, she felt a flicker of hope. It was going to be a long, difficult road, but with Nora's support, she felt a glimmer of strength. Meanwhile, Tom and Emily were grappling with their own emotions. Tom was filled with guilt for not stopping Jack, while Emily was furious with Lisa for pushing Jack to such extremes. "I should have seen it coming," Tom muttered, pacing their living room. "I should have done something." Emily watched him, her eyes filled with sorrow. "It's not your fault, Tom. Jack made his choice." "But I could have stopped him," Tom insisted. "I could have talked him out of it." Emily stood up, wrapping her arms around her husband. "We can't change the past, Tom. All we can do is be there for Jack and the girls now." Tom nodded, holding Emily close. "You're right, we need to be strong for them." As the news of Jack's arrest broke, the community was rocked. Sam Anderson's death had already been a shock, but the revelation that Jack Wilson, a respected businessman and family man, was responsible sent ripples through their social circles. Emily and Tom were inundated with calls and messages from concerned friends and family. They did their best to shield Claire and Sarah from the worst of it, but the twins were not oblivious. They sensed the tension and knew something terrible had happened. One evening, as Emily was preparing dinner, Claire approached her, her eyes wide with fear. "Aunt Emily, is it true? Did Dad really kill someone?" Emily's heart broke at the sight of her niece's fear. She knelt down, pulling Claire into a hug. "Your dad made a terrible mistake, sweetie, but he loves you very much, and he did what he thought was right at the time." Claire clung to her, sobbing. "I don't understand. Why would he do that?" Emily held her tight, wishing she had the perfect words to make it all better. "Sometimes adults make mistakes too, but we're going to get through this together, I promise." As Jack sat in his cell, he thought about his daughters. He had made his choices, and now he had to face the consequences. But he hoped, more than anything, that Claire and Sarah would be able to find some semblance of normalcy amidst the chaos. The days turned into weeks as the investigation continued. Jack's confession had set the legal wheels in motion, but there were still many questions to answer. The police scrutinized every detail, and Jack cooperated fully, determined to make amends for his actions. In the meantime, Lisa struggled to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. She attended counseling sessions with Nora's encouragement, trying to come to terms with her guilt and grief. The road to forgiveness was long and arduous, but she was committed to finding a way forward. Claire and Sarah, too, found themselves grappling with their new reality. They attended therapy sessions to help them process their emotions, and slowly, they began to heal. Their friends and extended family rallied around them, providing a support network that helped them navigate their pain. One afternoon, as Lisa sat in the living room, her phone rang. It was Jack calling from the prison. She hesitated before answering, unsure of what to say. "Hello, Jack," she said softly. "Lisa," Jack's voice was weary, filled with remorse. I just wanted to hear your voice. How are the girls?" "They're managing," Lisa replied. "We're all trying to find our way through this." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "I'm sorry, Lisa, for everything. I should have handled things differently." Lisa closed her eyes, fighting back tears. "I know, Jack, we both made mistakes, but we have to move forward for Claire and Sarah." "I know," Jack agreed. "I just hope someday they'll understand." As the months passed, the Wilson family slowly began to rebuild their lives. Jack faced the legal consequences of his actions, but he remained a part of his daughter's lives through letters and phone calls. Lisa continued to work on herself, finding strength in her support system. Nora and Emily stood by Lisa's side, helping her navigate the challenges of single parenthood. Their friendship grew stronger through the adversity, and they became an unbreakable trio. Tom focused on keeping the business afloat, providing stability for both families. He visited Jack regularly, offering support and encouragement. Through it all, the Wilsons learned that healing was a slow and painful process, but it was possible. They found solace in each other, drawing strength from their shared experiences and the love that bound them together. One summer morning, Lisa received an unexpected phone call. It was Jack's lawyer informing her that Jack's parole hearing had been moved up due to good behavior and a strong support network vouching for him. The news was a mix of anxiety and hope. Lisa immediately called Tom, Emily, and Nora to share the news. "Jack's parole hearing is next month," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of emotions. "That's sooner than we thought," Tom replied. "We'll be there to support him." The day of the parole hearing arrived, and Lisa, accompanied by Tom, Emily, and Nora, made her way to the prison. The atmosphere was tense, the stakes incredibly high. Jack's fate hung in the balance, and the family's future with it. Jack entered the hearing room looking older and wearier, but with a spark of hope in his eyes. He took a seat facing the parole board with a mixture of apprehension and resolve. The board members reviewed his case, considering his behavior in prison, his expressions of remorse, and the letters of support from his family and friends. Jack spoke earnestly, emphasizing his deep regret for his actions and his desire to make amends. "I've had a lot of time to reflect on what I did," Jack said, his voice steady but emotional. "I can't change the past, but I want to be there for my daughters. I want to be a better man for them and for Lisa." After what felt like an eternity, the board announced their decision. Jack was granted parole. The room erupted in a mixture of relief and joy. Lisa rushed to Jack, tears streaming down her face as she embraced him. "We did it," she whispered, holding him tightly. Jack's return home was a bittersweet adjustment. He had missed so much of his daughter's lives, and there was a lot of rebuilding to do. Claire and Sarah, now teenagers, were both eager and hesitant to reconnect with their father. They had grown accustomed to a life without him, and integrating him back into their daily routines required patience and understanding from everyone. Jack, too, had changed. Prison had given him time to reflect on his actions and their consequences. He was determined to earn back the trust of his family and make up for lost time. He took a job at a local hardware store, grateful for the opportunity to contribute and find a sense of normalcy. Lisa and Jack attended therapy sessions together, working through their past and finding ways to move forward. The process was challenging, but they were both committed to healing and rebuilding their relationship, not necessarily as a couple, but as co-parents and partners in their daughters' lives. Months turned into years, and the Wilson family continued to evolve. Jack's presence brought a new dynamic to the household. He was more attentive, patient, and involved in his daughters' lives. Claire and Sarah, once hesitant, began to open up to him, sharing their dreams and fears. One evening, as the family sat down for dinner, Jack looked around the table, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. "I know I've said this before, but I want to thank you all for giving me a second chance. I don't take it for granted." Lisa smiled, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "We're all doing our best, Jack. We're a family, and that means we support each other, no matter what." Nora and Emily, who had become like family, raised their glasses. "To second chances," Nora said, her voice full of warmth, "and to the future." As the years went by, Claire and Sarah graduated from high school and went on to college. Jack and Lisa stood together at their graduations, beaming with pride. They had managed to create a stable, loving environment for their daughters, despite the challenges they had faced. Lisa's counseling practice continued to thrive, and she became a respected figure in the community, known for her empathy and resilience. Jack found fulfillment in his work and became involved in local community service projects, giving back in ways he had never imagined. One crisp autumn day, the family gathered in their backyard for a celebration. It was a mix of milestones: Claire and Sarah's recent college acceptances, Jack's continued progress, and Lisa's expanding practice. Friends and family filled the yard, laughter and music blending into a joyful symphony. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over everything, Jack took a moment to reflect. He stood at the edge of the yard, watching Claire and Sarah laugh with their friends, Lisa chatting animatedly with Nora and Emily. This was his second chance, and he was determined to make the most of it. Lisa joined him, slipping her hand into his. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked with a smile. Jack looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Just thinking about how lucky I am. How lucky we all are." Lisa leaned her head on his shoulder. "We've come a long way, Jack, and we'll keep moving forward, together." As they stood there, surrounded by the people they loved, Jack knew that they had found their way through the darkness. They had faced their demons, healed their wounds, and emerged stronger on the other side. The Wilson family's journey was far from over, but they faced the future with hope and determination. They had learned that healing was a continuous process, one that required love, patience, and unwavering support. And as they celebrated their new beginnings under the twinkling stars, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, bound by the unbreakable ties of family and love.